This is Jacob from MTech, and today we'll be talking about cheap versus quality when it comes to computer power supplies. Now you may be wondering, what are we even talking about? This presentation will show you the difference between cheap and quality computer power supplies. Next question you may be asking is, what are computer power supplies? Computer power supplies are basically switching power supplies that switch your AC power, which is coming from your wall, into the following DC voltages: 3.3, 5, and 12 volts. Now, computer power supplies have a minus 12, 5 volt standby, and older computers might have a minus 5 volt rail. Modern computer power supplies will not have this minus 5 volt rail. These voltages are what your computer needs in order to operate. If it's not getting these voltages, it will not run. Plain and simple. What does a computer power supply look like? As you can see, not all power supplies look like this, but if you look at the back of a Dell, HP, Lenovo, those companies, you will find something that looks like this. Not necessarily, but this is just an example. What you see coming out of this power supply is wires, and at the end of these wires you have connectors. Most power supplies will have an ATX20 plus 4 pin, or in some cases 24 pin only, and in older units a 20 pin only. Most modern supplies will have at least 3 or 4 of these. This unit only has one. And modern power supplies will have at least this 4-pin ATX 12 volt connection. Although power supplies you can find on Newegg today usually will have a 4 plus 4 pin, which is called an ATX or EPS 12 volt connection. And newer power supplies will also have these Molex connections, which is for like floppy drives, not floppy drives, older hard disk, older DVD drives, stuff like that. And this tiny connector you'll find here, this mini 4-pin, is for floppy drives. Cheap power supplies. Why they are bad for your computer? Cheap power supplies are bad for your computer because they usually use cheap components, or missing components, or are rated higher than what they can actually provide. Cheap power supplies usually are also missing several protections, which can help protect the system in the event of a failure. So think of it this way. If you were to overvolt your power supply, or undervolt it, you'll either destroy your components, or it'll go off on a nice light show. Signs of a cheap power supply: unknown brand name. If it's a brand you've never heard of, assume it's junk. Another sign is that the power supply is missing components. For example, it may be missing the EMI filtering. It may also be missing PI filters, or it may also be missing capacitors. Another sign is that an extremely high wattage, such as 680 watts, at an extremely low price. Don't expect a $15 power supply to provide 480 watts, for example. And the last sign is that there is misspellings in the packaging or label. If they don't know how to spell on their own box or label on the unit itself, you shouldn't buy it, as they probably don't know how to make the internals either. And there's many more signs that I won't go into here. Just Google signs of a cheap power supply and you'll find out more. Here is the internals of a cheap power supply. At first you may see, oh, this is nice, sleeved cables. But actually, this is not a good unit. Notice what's missing here? Quality units would have EMI filtering components here, such as X capacitors, coils, This unit happens to have these Y capacitors, but Y capacitors just go to ground. You still need the coils and X capacitors. Quality power supplies. Why you should buy these, people. Quality power supplies are built to high quality standards. Quality power supplies usually have Japanese capacitors, plentiful amount of components, or in most cases overbuilt for their wattage, and they also have the proper EMI filtering. Quality power supplies can also save you money on the electric bill. Quality power supplies are 80 plus certified. Now, I won't go into detail on 80 plus certification today. Go ahead and Google that for more information. They also have active power factor correction, or PFC, which is required to even get 80 plus. So, quality power supplies also have all the necessary protections to protect your components in the event of a failure. Quality units, if you were to overvolt them or pull too many watts from them, they would shut off instead of blow up. And finally, quality power supplies come from reputable manufacturers such as Seasonic, Superflower. So if it's a manufacturer you have heard of, it's usually a good quality unit. Here's the internals of a quality power supply. Compared to the cheap one, notice how this one already has more components. Also notice how this one has proper EMI filtering. In fact, it has more than required when it comes to the Y capacitors, which go to ground. Also notice how this uses higher quality capacitors. In fact, there are more capacitors in the first place. Let's conclude this presentation by saying cheap power supplies are bad for your system and should not be bought. Only buy power supplies from reputable companies. EVGA, Seasonic, Corsair. Basically, if it's a manufacturer that you heard of, you should go ahead and buy it. Expect to spend at least $30 to $40 on a good power supply unit. Don't expect to pay like $10, $15 and get a quality unit. Thank you for watching. Make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. And also visit our social media pages. Links will be in the description below. Goodbye.